Before we go to the autism thing, because Kennedy made news on that too, on the drugs, it's fun to demonize drug companies because we're all kind of ticked off, I think, about the COVID vaccines and so on. Not all, but many of us. However, they're not all bad. They do make some drugs that have helped a lot of people. America's drunk on Ozempic. But I mean, like, there are some actual, serious drugs that can help people. And so one of the concerns behind people who back big pharma is how much is all of this, some of the stuff we're talking about, going to slow down the approval process for new drugs or drugs in testing?
We're speeding up the approval process. We made an announcement last week that we are reducing the requirements for some perfunctory things like animal testing. Why are we testing every single drug in chimpanzees and dogs, usually beagles, because they're obedient?
That's so sad.
It's sad, and it's unnecessary. Some of these drugs are already approved in other countries in humans. So you have a drug already in use in humans in other countries, and we're requiring animal testing before. So we are now, we've put out a release that we are now taking steps to reduce the animal testing requirement. It's cruel to the animals sometimes. It's unnecessary. And we live in a modern world where we have computational modeling using AI that can evaluate a molecule and predict its toxicity in humans better than the animal testing. We also have something called organ-on-a-chip technology, where, say, liver cells are grown in the lab.
Sounds like a terrible appetizer.
Yeah, I personally cannot eat liver. I've operated on the liver too much.
Oh, God.
One food I cannot do.
No one wants organ on a chip.
Yeah, organ on a chip. Not. So in the lab, they grow these cells, and then they introduce the drug. And you can actually see whether or not it injures the cells better than if you inject some bunny rabbit that it's not going to talk to you and say, my liver hurts. So these new technologies have the promise of replacing some of this routine animal testing. You would cut 6 months out of that approval process. You lower R&D costs for pharma companies and inventors, which could lower drug prices for everyday Americans. And it reduces animal use. There's too much animal use.
Are there any other areas where AI can come and help as we move into the 21st century?
Yeah, we're bringing in a team that is really exciting. They're going to introduce AI into the review process to help the reviewer, to make the reviewer's work stream much more streamlined and summarize things. There are parts of the drug application that are so perfunctory, that are outdated, that could be streamlined, that could be abstracted with AI to help the reviewer.
So here, like all other aspects of government that Trump is taking on, you're saying there's actually too much red tape, we're red taping the wrong things, it sounds like you're saying.
Why does it take 10 years to bring a drug to market in the United States? Because of the regulatory steps. I mean, people are dying. People need cures and meaningful treatments. And my predecessor in this role was focused, as he stated, his number one goal was fighting misinformation. Well, our number one goal is delivering cures and meaningful treatments and healthier foods for Americans. That is our focus. And so you've heard about consolidation or changes or cuts at the FDA. Those were not cuts to scientists or reviewers or inspectors. Absolutely none. They were cuts to communications staff, FDA's lobbyists to Congress, and to the IT systems here, where there's a lot of opportunity for efficiencies.
Yes, there's been pushback on the number of people who were ousted. I think it was your predecessor who said the FDA, as we know it, is gone, that the experts are gone. People with decades of institutional knowledge have been turfed, suggesting there might now be a safety issue here.
There was a massive growth of FDA employees under the Biden administration. And when the media reports that there were cuts, which many were early retirements, people who took early retirement, none were to scientific reviewers or inspectors or law enforcement at the FDA. They were to IT, communications, legislative affairs. And so what you're not hearing in the mainstream media is that there was a 100% increase in the number of FDA employees since 2006.
You have about 18,000, and it's been cut about 3,500 since you and Kennedy got here. So you're saying we had more like 9,000?
We had 9,500 employees at the FDA in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And so when you
doubled.
When you report that there were cuts, and you don't report that there was a 100% increase in employees in the preceding years, that the number of employees doubled in the preceding years, that is misleading reporting.
And the people who we've gotten rid of, losing them is not going to slow down drug approval or safety procedures because they were, sounds like, more administrative people.
There were no cuts to scientists, reviewers, or inspectors or law enforcement. And my goal is to make sure that every one of those people has all the resources they need to do their job well. Now, cuts are never perfect. And so we have done an assessment, and there are some individuals that we have invited back. There were a couple people who were taking the early retirement, and we were told of their sort of how well they performed here, and we encouraged them to stay. But to not report that the agency has doubled since 2006 before this cut, in my opinion, is not telling the whole story.
No, it's dishonest.
It's dishonest.
Is it swampy here? And by that I mean, we had a report that when Secretary Kennedy came over and addressed the troops last Friday, some people got up and walked out. They were disgusted by him, which seems like a bad sign.
Yeah, I was in that room. Nobody got up and walked out. Now, we did stream it, so if somebody was watching it in their office and got up to go to the bathroom during the speech, maybe that constituted getting up and walking out. I don't know. I was in that room, and there was incredible energy in that room because he talked about how agencies that are set up to defend public safety sometimes become captured by the organizations that they are set out to regulate. And he talked about the EPA has had a history where they have cycled and at times have been captured by the industry. And he encouraged people at the FDA to speak up, think independently, and that he had his full support behind them. So it was an incredible talk. And of course, you're going to hear, a clip or a phrase pulled out of context. But I was in that room. Nobody walked out. And it was incredibly a strong message. The FDA is strong, and we're going to continue to be strong. And that's because we believe in the scientists.
How's your relationship with Bobby Kennedy?
It's good. I got to know him during the nomination process, and I found that he always listens to me. He values scientists on questions where he has, some skepticism or he has some honest questions that he wants to pose. And I think that's what we need. I mean, first of all, he represents America. President Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are the two most popular political people in the United States right now. That's polling data. That's not my opinion. That's polling data. And he represents the American people. He has questions. He wants the scientific process to run its course. And so he's posing the questions, and he values our opinion. Everything I've put before him, he has valued my input on. And so we're going to see new studies come out. We're going to talk about chronic diseases. We're going to look at food and food ingredients. And he's provided some really great leadership. Are we
redoing the food pyramid?
We're redoing the food pyramid.
Thank God.
And no longer are we going to say you have to have these calories. It doesn't matter how you get them. It doesn't matter if it's all ultra-processed foods. It's just pure calories in, calories out. That dogma, which had no scientific support, was a massively underfunded endeavor. We let the industry tell us as a government what's healthy and what's not healthy. And even with the recent Biden administration suggestion to have front of package labeling, they picked sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar in there. I think they got maybe one thing right out of those four, but they ignored a giant swath of food ingredients. And so when you ignore 1,000 chemicals, some of which are petrochemicals that have been introduced into the food supply simply because the industry has self-deemed them as safe. When you ignore that, then you can't call something healthy just because it has a low amount of saturated fat. I mean,
right.
That's old dogma.
You've heard about tariffs recently, plus inflation, supply chain disruptions. It's a lot, but there is a silver lining that most people missed. President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from the tariff talk. The administration preserved the ability to diversify into precious metals. If you are concerned about your savings, consider a free consultation with a Birch Gold precious metals specialist. The first step is to text MK to 989898 and receive your free no-obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, consider texting MK to 989898. Again, text MK to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.